Going to show you how I handicapped a full slate of NHL games yesterday, March the 1st, 2025. I'm going to show you how I handicapped this game objectively, which is the model. And we also factored in some situational angles, which is what I call the subjective side. You'll see all that. I'll break it down, show you what games I started with, what 2 games I ended up playing, show you exactly how I did that. In addition to that, we're going to talk about why it's very difficult to handicap any sport late in the season. I'm going to show you an NBA example and also show you an NCAA basketball example. Big intro. My name's MG Covers. Greatly appreciate you guys tuning into this video. Been extremely busy with life, so it's been difficult to pump out some content, but I think this is a great video. Appreciate you tuning in. If you watch this video at the end, you like it, please subscribe to the channel. It helps the channel grow. If you follow me on social media, there's a link to follow me in the description of this video. I put a ton of content on Instagram as well, probably more so than YouTube. Much easier to pump out content regularly on Instagram. So if you follow me, you get a ton of value. Simply follow me on Instagram. Okay, late in the season, it's very difficult to handicap as opposed to earlier in the season. Not talking about from day one, meaning after you have sufficient data for your model, that is probably the best time to handicap. Late in the season, the sports betting lines become, quote, tight. And I'm going to give you an example of what that is right out the gate. So let's dive over here to college basketball. And I'm not wagering on college basketball at this moment. And what I mean by a tight line, if a line is -4, that's a very solid line. That means that team's probably going to win the game. It's just a matter if they're going to cover the 4. Same deal if a team is -11. If a team is -11, the -11 team it's probably going to be a blowout. It's just a matter of can they cover that 11. So converting that over to a money line, a +199 dog right now in NHL is vastly different than a +199 dog, say, December the 2nd. Because that 199, just based on that information, would have a greater chance of cashing in December than it would now post All-Star / international break. So very difficult to handicap late. The lines are very tight, and just let's go through this, and you'll see what I'm talking about when you look at NCAA basketball. Virginia Tech was -4, they win by 6. Connecticut -7, they win by 12. St. Joseph -8.5. So when you see a -8.5, that team more than likely is winning the game. It's just a matter of are they going to cover. Look at Maryland -5. I'm using bookmaker closing line. Maryland -4, they went -5, they win by 4. So none of these dogs are cashing. Clemson -6.5, Clemson wins in a blowout. Look at this one. Here's a blowout. North Carolina's -16. So North Carolina, based on the line being, quote, tight late in the season, they're going to win this game. It's going to be a blowout. Just a matter of they're going to cover the 16, and they do. 89. Meaning if you add 16 to the 73, it becomes 89. North Carolina covers. So no dogs have won. Villanova -7.5. So more than likely Villanova's going to win. It's just a matter of if they're going to cover or not. Auburn -5. Auburn wins in a blowout over Kentucky. Arkansas, South Carolina. South Carolina -1. South Carolina wins in a blowout. Northern Kentucky -2.5. They win by, 9 points. I was trying to see how far we go down before we see a dog win. Ohio is -6.5. They win by, 9? Chattanooga -9.5. Chattanooga's probably going to win in a blowout. It's just a matter of if they're going to cover the 9.5. Here's another example. Same example. East Tennessee -11.5. Just a matter if they're going to cover the 11.5 or not. There's another one. Dayton -14. They win by 10. Jacksonville -3. We have to come all the way down to this Northeastern game. Finally, we have a +3 dog that won by 2 points. Still a close game. So that's my point about the lines being very tight. Now, take a look at this NBA model. And some of you remember this. I made changes to this. So from January the 1st, I think they started playing January the 3rd. This model, all the way up until the All-Star break, no line movement, just 100% model, went 37-27. And that was factored in money line dogs. So if the line was plus 5.5 or less, we played it on it would be played on the money line. If it was greater than that, we played it taking the points. So that went 37 and 27, very profitable. Now look what's happened post All-Star break. I waited for about 3 or 4 days before I started to track this model again. 0-3 on Friday, yesterday 0-2. Very, very difficult to handicap late in the season. And sometimes, even though we're post All-Star break, that's still considered late in the season, as opposed to handicapping NBA in November, December, or January. Okay? And I could show you the same thing with NBA as well, but you get the point. So, now we're going to finally dive into NHL. Now, NHL, again, they are post All-Star break, but I feel confident in this model. I have had success with NHL handicapping the second half of the season, but I'm taking some extra steps to ensure that the games that we are playing, we have a high percentage chance of winning those games. So I'm actually running 2 models. This is the old model. I've had this model literally for, I guess, 11 years. And so what I'm doing is just looking at the top teams via this model. So my selections are going to come from this. In addition to that, I have another model that we had a lot of success with last year. So I will compare those models, these 2 models, to kind of dial in to see which is the, quote, better play. Now, a very good thing you can do, a good exercise is when you're handicapping, is to look at one play, compare that to the other play, and rank which play has a higher percentage chance of cashing compared to the other play. And you can factor in, you can do this objectively, you can also do this subjectively. So model wise, if you come back over here, we had Tampa as the number 15. This is what I call the margin concept model. And you come over here to Tampa was playing Washington. So we had Tampa minus 135 on the other model, Washington plus 124. So we had Tampa basically favored in both of those models. Tampa was the game that we actually played. I don't know if I can pull up the, let me see if I can pull, I don't think I have it on here. I was going to pull that up just to show you I played it. So we did play Tampa. Now, the other play that we played, and we're going to rank these plays, or let's show you another play I had under consideration. Let me go back up here to NHL. All right, another play under consideration was Detroit. Why? Because Detroit was part of this top 10 model here. They were 8th. However, if you look at the other model, Detroit was plus 128. Columbus was plus 114. And Detroit, if I played Detroit, I would have to lay juice or play them as a, quote, favorite, when in reality on this other model, they were dogs, if that makes sense. So immediately, if I'm comparing to Tampa or Detroit, which is the better play, Tampa, favored in both models, or Detroit? The obvious answer is Tampa, okay? All right, now, let's take a look at Philadelphia and Winnipeg. So I have both these teams as a favorite. I have Philadelphia minus 110, Winnipeg minus 145. If we go over to the other model, we have just Philadelphia. Winnipeg actually fell out of the top 10 for this model. So we have sort of conflicting data there. We have them favored via one model, and actually Winnipeg favored the other model. So if I'm comparing Tampa to this, which will be the better play? Tampa, okay? But still, now, watch this. If I'm comparing the Philadelphia play to the Detroit play, which would be the better play? Philadelphia. Why? Philadelphia, I get more value there, plus 189. My line for Philadelphia in the other model was minus 110. They're a top 10 team in the other model as well. So if I'm comparing Philadelphia to the Detroit play, which would be the better play? The Philadelphia play. Detroit lost, Philadelphia won. So again, this is a really good exercise to do with however you handicap. And then let's take a look at the next play with value. Montreal and Buffalo. Had Montreal plus 100, plus 110 at this model, and then the other model we had Montreal as the 10th team. Now, let's look at the line. The line for Montreal was plus 131, so we were getting value. We have them at plus 100. That equates to a 50% chance of winning. The line was plus 131 books line, so we have, quote, positive EV there. All right. So if I'm ranking this play, let's say Montreal compared to Detroit would have been a better play, right? If I'm comparing Montreal to Philadelphia, I almost look at those games as even, right? Because Montreal-Buffalo line was pretty close in one model. Philadelphia-Winnipeg line was pretty close in one model. However, and we have Philadelphia-Montreal in the top 10 in the other one. And another reason why these two would have been better selections than Detroit, if I play Philadelphia-Montreal, both are underdogs, right? Plus 189, plus 131. I only need to win one of these to profit. So, for example, $100, we wager 100 on each. Let's say we lose Montreal. Minus 1 unit, we win Philadelphia up 1.89 units. That's positive 0.89 units. Same with the reverse. We lose Philadelphia, win Montreal. Still would be positive 0.31 units. So if I'm comparing Philadelphia, Montreal, and Detroit, Philadelphia, Montreal are higher ranked plays than Detroit. Okay. Now let's dive on down here to Los Angeles and St. Louis. If we go over here to the top 10 model, we have St. Louis as the number 2 team via the margin concept model. And we go back over here and take a look. They're minus 127 here, and LA Kings are minus 113. Now we're going to get into a situational angle that is very strong in NHL that very few people talk about. And I'm at covers.com just in case you're wondering. It's a really good resource for information. Let's take a look at LA Kings here. Let's look at their last 10. So now you can already see it doesn't show the current game. So they've only won 2 of their last 5 games going into this game. So post All-Star break, they have won 2 and lost 2. Look at St. Louis post All-Star break. They are 3-1, right? And also, too, if you pay really close attention to this, look at what happens on February 26th. They play Vancouver at home. Then they have the 27th off. Then LA goes to Dallas. They play Dallas on the 28th, last day of the month, and then they have to turn around and play on a back-to-back the next day. A very, very strong situational angle to handicap against in NHL is a team playing their 3rd game in 4 days. So they play one on the 26th, off on the 27th, played on the 28th, turn around and play it again. So they're on a back-to-back, and they're playing their third game in 4 days on a back-to-back, and the last 2 were on the road. Fatigue is a real factor, and it will hurt just about any team, and it's something that is extremely undervalued when handicapping NHL. For example, if you remember Winnipeg, we played Winnipeg. I can't remember what night it was. They won. The next night they were playing. It was St. Louis. They were playing St. Louis. They were on a back-to-back. St. Louis won 2-1. And at the time I had Winnipeg as the best team via the model. So fatigue is a real factor. Now, when we look at St. Louis, second best team via the model, we have them here at minus 127 via my line. We also have Kings as a favorite as well. Kings are a good team, but this fatigue angle, which in my opinion for NHL is the strongest situational angle to handicap against. So we factor in the fatigue. And if I'm ranking plays, going back to that previous example, and let's take a look at these. So I would say Tampa and St. Louis were probably on the same level as far as plays. Tampa and St. Louis were the actual 2 plays that we played. Now, if I'm ranking St. Louis compared to Philadelphia, I would give the edge to St. Louis. If I'm handicapped because we have value via the model and a strong situational angle. And also, too, if we look at Detroit, same deal there. We have St. Louis favored in both models. We have a strong situational angle in our favor. And we also have, comparing that to Detroit, St. Louis will be a better play. In addition to that, you've heard me talk about situational angles. Statistical properties. St. Louis was a home favorite. Home favorites in NHL win 64% of the time. That is the highest statistical property of any statistical property in NHL. If you're new watching this video, if you hear that term, nobody uses that term. That's a term I created to define facts about that sport. So the more times we can align our handicap with a statistical property, that increases our chances of cashing that particular play. So for St. Louis, we had value via both models. Los Angeles fatigue factor, a strong statistical property in our favor. So I ranked it Tampa and St. Louis as even plays. Those were the two plays that we played. And of course, in a strong third and fourth would have been Philadelphia, Montreal. If we'd have played those, we would have went 4-0. And then finally, I want to look at this Vancouver game. Take a look. Vancouver was minus 138. You go over here to the other model. They were the 7th best team in this model, so we have value. However, let's look at this. Vancouver. Situational angle. We scroll down here to Vancouver. Let's look at the matchup. Look at Vancouver post All-Star break. Loss, win, loss. Bad form out the gate. All of these games for Vancouver were on the road. Vegas on the road. Utah on the road. LA Kings on the road. Anaheim on the road. They had the 28th off, but then they had to turn around and play Seattle on the road. This was, I'm pretty sure this was the last game of the road trip. Then they go home. So they've had to play post All-Star break 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games in a row. So they've played 5 games in basically a week's time, all on the road. Not as strong fatigue factor as the LA Kings example, but fatigue nonetheless. So again, if I'm ranking this where Vancouver would play, I would have Tampa, St. Louis, Philadelphia, Montreal. Vancouver would be at the very bottom, right? And I think Vancouver was, you'd have had delay. It was basically an even game via the books line, minus 110 on a 20-cent line. So anyway, hopefully that helps, and you can kind of see the process of how I handicap NHL. But again, a couple key takeaways from this. Handicapping late in the season is very difficult. Make sure that you have an edge however you handicap, and I feel more confident with NHL than I do NBA and NCAA basketball. There's a reason that the books advertise March Madness. It's a huge profit center for the books. But in my opinion, very difficult. I shared this on Instagram. I've had 1 year where we literally did 15 units NCAA basketball during a tournament, but majority of the time early in my career, I lost. So for me, there's no edge, and that's pretty much true for a lot of sports late in the season. So be careful handicapping. And then if you do handicap, you might want to go through the process I just went through where you're looking at one game, comparing that to the other, and ranking those games and making sure that you play the top teams that give you the best chance of cashing it. Greatly appreciate you guys watching this video. If you want access to all these coaching videos that I have close to 200 coaching videos on the website, and you get access to all of my lines for all sports, $50 a month, very inexpensive. You don't have to file bankruptcy in order to get access to that. It's very inexpensive to join. If you want to join for an entire year, that is the best value. Instead of paying the monthly fee, you can pay $4.99 one time. You get access to everything on the site for an entire year. That is the best value. Link in the description to join. Greatly appreciate you guys watching. Peace.